Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the Charlie Small Gorilla City series. It was very quiet beneath the trees, and the only sounds I could hear were drops of water plopping into the creek, the quiet swish of my paddle as I tried to keep the boat steady, and suddenly twigs cracked somewhere in the undergrowth and a strange cry came from the trees. I looked up in alarm and smack! An enormous cobweb caught me full in the face. It wrapped itself around my head, covering my eyes and filling my open mouth. It was as strong as cotton thread, and I had to tear at it with both hands to rip myself free. Something dropped onto my shoulder and scuttled down my back. Oh, I couldn't bear to look, but shook myself wildly until I heard whatever it was plop into the water behind me. I sat back, panting hard, my heartbeat sounding loud amid the silence of the trees. This adventuring business was starting to get more than a little bit scary. Part of me thought that perhaps I'd had enough exploring for one day, and that now was probably a very good time to go home. But what kind of an explorer would I be then? A very famous adventurer had run for home as soon as they'd got a fright, then nothing would have ever been discovered. No, I thought. A proper explorer would carry on, even if there were strange things lurking in the trees overhead. The current was too strong for me to stop my raft anyway, and even if I could have slowed down, there was nowhere to climb out onto the bank. The sides of the stream were covered in a mass of thorny roots. I had to go on. The entrance to the tunnel had now disappeared, and I was in almost total darkness. I ducked low on my raft in case there were more cobwebs up ahead, and felt the stream twisting and turning as the current pulled me onwards. Pretty soon I had no idea which way was home. Don't panic, I muttered to myself, starting to panic. Don't. Whoa! Something nudged my raft, something huge, and I heard the slap of a tail on water. I paddled hard and fast, my heart pounding against my chest, and then, finally, I saw a pinprick of light in the distance. It looked like the end of the tunnel at last. But just as I thought I might make it safely out the other end, crump! My raft was lifted out of the water and I toppled backward, splashing into the river. Danger from the deep. I sank in a cascade of bubbles, thrashing about in a blind panic. Through the churning water I glimpsed a cold black eye, then a row of teeth like chips of flint. What was it? Then, as I surfaced, I saw something rise near the far bank, and I knew. A crocodile! But that was crazy! What was a crocodile doing in our local stream? Now isn't the time to wonder. The monster was speeding straight towards me, mouth wide open. Then, just as it closed in to strike, my raft drifted between us. The crocodile took a huge bite, shaking the boat furiously until the ropes snapped and the log splintered. Then it rolled, readying itself for another attack, and as its tail whipped past me, I grabbed hold and hung on for dear life. The croc started thrashing wildly, winding me and making me gasp. Then whoosh, we were away on a roller coaster ride, plowing through the water and throwing up a huge fan of spray. The crocodile twisted and turned, snapping at me as I clung desperately on. At one point I thought it was all over as the beast whipped round and slammed its mighty jaws shut. A powerful tug at my back nearly plucked me from my perch on its tail, and for one horrible moment I expected its rows of splintered teeth to slice into me. But then I realized that the beast had bitten into the rucksack on my back. The enraged crocodile let go, but continued to spin and spiral, leaping from the river and then diving into its murky depths. Somehow I managed to hold on and crawl up its gnarled back, gripping its scaly body with my hands and knees like a bucking bronco rider. I held on for dear life as we sped towards daylight, the sides of our tunnel plasing in a blur of greens and yellows. I was starting to tire and felt my hold on the crocodile's back slipping. But I knew that if I let go, I would be instant fast food. I had to do something. Reaching over my shoulder with one hand, I felt something in my rucksack until I found the ball of string I had packed as part of my explorer's kit. Gripping the crocodile with my legs, I managed to make a slip knot at one end of the string. Then, ever so slowly, I edged my way up its long, slippery back, pushing myself forward until I was astride its head. This was it. I knew I only had one chance. Any slip up and I would drop straight into the croc's deadly jaws. As we raced out of the tunnel into dazzling sunlight, I lunged forward and passed the loop of string around its snout and pulled with all my might. The knot slipped up the string and drew the loop tight around the croc's jaws. Now it couldn't bite, and all I had to do was wait for it to tire. I was still congratulating myself when we shot straight out into midair, like a bullet from a gun. The river had come to a sudden halt in a high-roaring waterfall, far from home. Down I dropped, still astride the crocodile's back, through billows of spray and down through the colored arc of a rainbow until thwack, we hit the water and I was knocked clear off the reptile and sank in a roar of foam. Buffeted and battered like a rag in a washing machine, I kicked for the surface, praying that my loop of string would hold tight around the crocodile's snout. I broke through the surface and looked desperately until I spotted the great beast. It was floating stunned and wounded on the other side of the wide lake that pooled at the base of the falls. The string was still tied firmly around its mouth. I swam for the shore and clambered out, shaking with exhaustion, and carefully edged near to where the crocodile flopped pathetically into the shadows. And quick as I could, I yanked at the string and freed the croc from its muzzle. It drifted away, tired and defeated. Panting, I reached around to put the ball of string back in my rucksack. My hand brushed against something sharp. It was one of the crocodile's teeth, wedged into the buckle. I pulled it out. The tooth was razor sharp, serrated like a steak knife and as big as my hand. Fantastic! I wrapped the tooth in some leaves and pushed it right to the bottom of my rucksack. I couldn't wait to show everyone at school. It was undeniable proof that I had wrestled the croc and lived to tell the tale. But then, as I looked around to get my bearings, I began to wonder if I'd ever be going to school again. Because I could see immediately that absolutely everything had changed. The waterfall had tumbled me down over 300 meters of sheer cliff, and there was no way I could climb back up. And I couldn't see any paths leading away from the lake either. It was surrounded by trees that grew in a tangle right up to the water's edge, trees so tall and thick and vine-covered that they looked suspiciously like a jungle, a dark, steamy jungle. As the air echoed to the sounds of unfamiliar birds and animals, I wondered if I had dropped into some sort of incredible theme park. But that was crazy. I was pretty sure I'd have heard if a new one was going to open anywhere near my house. So where on earth was I? I was in a tight spot. That's where I was. I looked back up the huge cliff face and decided I should probably let Mom know that I might be late for tea. Rummaging in my rucksack, I found my mobile and dialed. Amazingly, I managed to get a signal. "Mom!" I cried when she answered the phone. "Oh, hello, darling. Is everything all right?" "Yeah, it's brilliant. But Mom, I've discovered this weird river and I seem to have toppled over a waterfall into a deep valley. Sounds wonderful, dear, she replied. Oh, wait a minute, Charlie. Here's your dad just come in. Now remember, don't be late for tea, and if you're passing the shops on the way back, please pick up a pint of milk. Bye. Hold on a minute, Mom, I began, but she had already hung up. Never mind, I thought, returning my phone to the bottom of my bag. I could tell her everything when I got home. I eyed the heavy undergrowth. Whenever that might be, into the jungle. I set off through the tangle of trees and bushes and was soon covered in scratches and bruises. My trainers were full of mud and water, but I didn't care. What are a few scratches to a bold adventurer? Would Neil Armstrong have abandoned his moon mission just because he'd scuffed his best shoes? I don't think so. I pushed bravely onwards, keeping my eyes peeled all the time. The jungle air was filled with the sounds of strange beasts, and after my encounter with the crocodile, I knew I had to tread really carefully. Calls drifted down from the treetops, and I could hear growls, grunts, and snuffles as mysterious creatures scrambled through the undergrowth. But although I heard the rustle of leaves overhead and the cracking of twigs on the ground, I didn't see anything at all. Just endless trees and bushes. And every time I bent back a branch or pushed nervously through some vines, I thought I might come face to face with something horrible. But it wasn't possible to stay scared for too long because everyone in this strange new world was so wonderful. The trees were draped with lichen-covered creepers, and strange fruits hung in great clusters from their branches. Some of the leaves were as large as tablecloths and as tough as leather. One fell to the ground, and just as I was passing through a small clearing, and I decided it would make another great trophy to show off at school. I rolled it up and was just adding it to my explorer's kit when I had the strangest feeling that I was being watched. I darted a look around the clearing, but I could see nothing. Just more trees. Feeling uneasy, I slipped back into the undergrowth and pressed on as quickly as I dared. I was sure that I could hear the rustle of leaves and the careful tread of footsteps behind me. But every time I stopped, so did the footsteps, and every time I started off, they were there again. It was not a nice feeling. I didn't like it at all, and my imagination started going into overdrive. What could it be? A man-eating tiger, perhaps? Or a sly and hungry wolf? Or maybe it was someone from home, my dad or a friend looking for me. There was only one way to find out. I took a deep breath and swung round suddenly. There, just a few meters back, amongst the dark leaves, was a pair of angry red eyes staring right at me. I ran as fast as I could through the tangle of branches, aware of the footsteps behind getting closer and closer. Then, all of a sudden, the jungle stopped and I raced out into a vast clearing, a plain of yellow grassland that stretched all the way to the horizon. Okay, that's part 2. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe for part 3 and don't forget to hit the like button. Bye!